working for me. If you are following me on YouTube, I'm only 5 minutes late. On LinkedIn, if you're watching the replay, you can just scroll over to the 20-minute mark and you will see where I began. I was having some tech difficulties, but I'm not going to let that stop me from delivering the information. And you can always catch it on the replay. And you can follow me on my LinkedIn at Executive Longevity for executive style briefings. You can also follow me on Substack for deeper thought level reading at Executive Longevity. And you can follow me on my other social medias on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok at Ask Nurse Sherry. I am Sherry Austin, registered nurse and executive longevity advisor, and I advise CEO, founders, and senior leaders on how to protect decision quality to prevent hidden risks as they scale. So what does that mean? That means I help you to build the physiological drivers that impacts your leadership infrastructure so that you can lead at full altitude. So you can't outwork biology. So I help with those drivers and help you come up with a structured plan depending on what your challenge is at this time to lead in order so that you can lead your organization, because we have to remember that leadership is a governance issue and it is stewardship of the role. So we want to lead for as long as possible. So most people think when something feels off that they're burned out or they lost discipline, but high performers don't suddenly lose discipline. You've proven that you can show up, that you can execute at high levels, but something lately has been feeling heavier. Your decisions take more effort and your energy doesn't match your output. And although that's one of the mild invisible signs of burnout, it's also something that I call identity drift. It's when the person that you were working towards a goal no longer is the person you are when you achieve that goal, and why that happens. And it's actually another form of invisible burnout that most people don't realize that they're experiencing. We have to remember that leadership isn't just behavioral, it's physiology. So if your physiological drivers are impaired, then your leadership will eventually be impaired. And that's usually the first sign of impairment. It's just most people don't notice it until burnout becomes extremely visible, until you're emotionally reactive, until the culture of your company has changed, until you start making decisions that have catastrophic or near catastrophic impact on your company. And that's when most people notice the burnout. By then, it's too late. One of the hidden risks of ambition is your life keeps evolving, but what are we doing to update that evolution? Are we taking the same way we take quarterly resets every quarter at the end of the quarter to reassess in our company's capital allocation, the culture, our goals, and create further time horizons? That's what we need to do on a personal level. Is this still the same goal that I want? Do I still want to lead at this capacity? Has how I want to lead changed? And a lot of times we're so busy with the work of leadership that we're not taking the time to just ask ourselves those questions, to actually do a reset. Recently, I did a quarterly reset in a mastermind for my business. And let me tell you, it was revolutionary. And I think definitely, I know, not only do you need to do this for your business, you need to take a day or half a day and do a quarterly reset and evaluate your goals, not just for the company, but also personally. What are the things that you're doing to enhance your leadership? What things need to change? What things need to stay? So let's define what identity drift is. Identity drift is what happens when who you are becoming and how you are currently operating start to separate. So you're still performing, but it just takes more effort. And it's also what I call the myth of getting by. You're getting by, nothing seems wrong just yet, but you're noticing it. But a lot of times we are not investigating what the issue is until the visible signs or the catastrophic events occur. So some things that you might notice that you're reading information, but making decisions that feel heavier, the same decisions that you used to make very easily, you're no longer able to make them as easily. You're more reactive, you're not as patient, you're more mentally fatigued, you're unable to make decisions, but you're functioning. And so because you're functioning, you ignore the signs. A lot of times when people do notice that these things are occurring, they feel like the problem is, I just need to do more. I need to work more. I need to work harder. But you're not looking at the infrastructure, which would be your sleep architecture. How are you managing your cognitive output? Are you getting enough sleep? Are you the bottleneck in your company? Do all decisions flow upstream? Do you have delegation processes in place to prevent yourself from becoming the decision bottleneck? Do you have 90-minute protected blocks? Do you create CEO thinking time? Do you have intentional recovery and restoration time? Because if you don't, that's when the cracks start to develop. Do you look at who you used to be and who you are now? Are you heading in the direction you once wanted to head into? This is the awareness that dispels all the noise, because all that other stuff is noise. And this is why deep thinking blocks are so important. This is why an intentional recovery system and restoration is so important. Because the more you don't take the time to reset, the more you don't take the time to restore yourself, you start operating under increased sustained cognitive load. And although we are bombarded with AI and the world, especially technologically, is moving at quantum speed, your brain is still finite and it's still operating under biological constructs. So without addressing the physiological constructs first, the identity drift starts before you even realize it's happening. This is where misalignment exists. Awareness does not equal correction, though. So you're aware of the problem. So what do you do next? You drift physiologically if your sleep is disrupted. Are you getting 7 to 9 hours of quality sleep during the night? Because quality is more important than duration. Is your stress load elevated? And if it is, what steps or what systems do you have in place to alleviate your cognitive load? Is your recovery inconsistent? And a lot of people think that time off work is recovery. But if you leave the office and you're still tethered to your laptop, your phone, your computer, you're still answering emails, you're still constantly on, your cortisol is just running on high levels all the time, and you're basically in survival mode at all times. So you're not really recovered, you're not really restored. So that's why when Monday morning hits, you're wired and tired. And here's a fun little fact. Most heart attacks and strokes occur on Monday morning between 4 a.m. and 10 a.m. because most people are not recovering on the weekend, or they treat the weekends as a free for all. And we go back to our college and sorority girl and frat boy days, and we're just drinking and we're not sleeping and we're binge eating. And then Monday comes and we're not ready to go. So when your capacity drops, your clarity drops, your precision drops, in your decision making growth. And when that happens, your identity follows your capacity. Like I said earlier, you cannot outwork biology. So now you're in a situation where you don't even have the internal capacity to operate the version that you are consistently used to operating in. And this is why a lot of high performers feel stuck. Not because you lack clarity, but because you lack stability in your capacity. This doesn't happen immediately, it happens slowly. And because it happens slowly and your capacity erodes very quietly, a lot of people miss the signals. And then over time, it compounds missed opportunities, team impact. You start making strategic and potentially catastrophic errors. Identity drift does not remove your ability to lead, it lowers the level in which you lead. So I know earlier I spoke about identity reset, but the solution is not just resetting, it's alignment. When you do your reset, are you aligned with the person or with the ideals that you are leading on? Again, we're aware, but awareness is not correction. So, what are some things that we can do to stabilize our physiology? One, again, let's go back to sleep because that's the leading physiological driver. When your sleep is off, your leadership is off, your cognitive capacity is off, we need quality sleep because you need the REM stages and the REM stages to help with your memory and your cognition, and you need the deep sleep stage to remove cellular debris out of your brain, out of your lymphatic system. I'm not going to get super clinical and technical, but that's the reason why. So when you have the duration and the quality, you're able to have more clarity and it increases your cognitive capacity. Are you metabolically stable? Are you just jumping out of bed, Red Bull and coffee in the morning, and you're wired? Are you leading forward with protein forward meals? How are you taking care of yourself metabolically? Metabolically, how are you taking care of yourself? If you're not intentional about your recovery and you're constantly on, your amygdala stays in survival mode. So you're constantly in fight and flight, which makes you emotionally reactive and unpredictable. And an unpredictable leader leads unpredictable teams. The leaders set the culture for their company. What culture are you creating in your company and in your leadership? I just wanted to come on here very quickly to talk about identity drift and how the invisible signs of burnout shows up and some things that you can do to help combat that. So like I said again, I'm Sherry Austin, registered nurse and executive longevity advisor. I help CEO founders and high performing leaders stabilize their capacity so they can lead, think, and perform at their highest level consistently. If this resonated with you, DM me recovery or click my link in the bio on LinkedIn so we can have a chat on ways that I can work with you to help you stabilize your physiology so you can lead at altitude. Have a wonderful evening.